Well, friends, we are living through a mental health crisis right now. And the truth is, we were already living through a mental health crisis, but the pandemic has made it so much worse. Of course, this isn't the first time that a virus has had this effect in our history, because history has a way of repeating itself. I remember early in the pandemic doing a Facebook Live with my sister, who is an infectious disease doctor on faculty at Wayne State Medical School in Michigan. Now, normally, Gretchen, that's my sister's name, she's a researcher, and her clinical practice and her research centers around HIV and AIDS. And being an infectious disease person in this day and age, though, obviously she got very involved with COVID. But still, coming from an HIV background gave Gretchen a unique perspective on COVID and how that we are supposed to look at the full scope of what human health means, not just physical, but mental and emotional too. See, back in the early days of the AIDS epidemic, doctors preached abstinence. And it's still true today that abstinence is the only guaranteed way to prevent a sexually transmitted disease, including HIV. But still, doctors learned that prescribing abstinence took a toll on the human experience of their patients and the broader definition of their health. The truth is that we are human beings and we need love and connection. Everyone needs love and connection. And we are less physically, mentally, and spiritually healthy when we don't have it. So doctors back in that last epidemic, the HIV epidemic, they learned that HIV risk, it needed to be managed but not fully eliminated for the overall health and wellness of their patients. Now today, we're sort of learning those lessons again. We're learning that being COVID negative is one aspect of our health, albeit an extremely important one, but it's not the entire definition of our health. We're human beings after all, and there is only so long that we can go without human connection before it starts taking a dramatic toll on our minds and on our spirits and even on our bodies. There are physical manifestations of that stress. Luckily, for now, the science is catching up with the vaccine, and the vaccine is being rolled out, and we have the opportunity to safely manage the risk of COVID while also allowing ourselves to feel love and connection that we need. But it's been a whole year to get to this point. And so many of us have suffered mentally from this isolation. Kids, teens, adults, seniors, all kinds of people have suffered mentally this year. And we are so in need of healing. Sometimes it can be daunting, this need. We may have already been suffering from mental health issues like depression or anxiety before even the pandemic hit. We may feel so alone and so helpless in knowing how we are meant to heal. We might be wondering, where do we even begin? Now, I hope that our scripture story today has a kernel of hope for us. Now, full disclosure here, I'm not here to pretend that faith in Jesus will suddenly make your mental health issues go away. I'm not here to preach that Jesus is the only therapist or psychiatrist or pharmaceutical help that you will need. In fact, I'm here to preach the opposite. For too long, the church has either ignored mental illness or made it out to be a symptom of too little faith. And none of that is true. And Jesus is not a quick fix solution for any illness, including mental illness. But I do think that our faith can play a part in the broader story of our healing. I do think that the community that we gather around can play a part in the broader story of our healing. I do think that the prayers that we lift and hold for one another can play a part in the broader story of our healing. I do think that the sense of purpose that we get from Christ's invitation to simply follow him, it can play a part in the broader story of our healing. And perhaps most importantly, I do think that the space that we can create together to safely tell our truths and our stories can be part of our broader story of healing. I think all of these things can live alongside the healing that we receive from therapists and psychiatrists and SSRIs and antipsychotics. I think all of these things can be part of our stories of healing. And these stories we tell of Jesus' own ministry of healing can help us see how to do that. And today's story, I think, is a beautiful example. The scripture story that we heard today is like many stories in the Bible of Jesus healing folks. People come up to Jesus and ask, beg, plead for healing. And I do think it's notable that the blind men in this story came together. I wonder if they had more courage to seek the help that they needed with a friend by their side. Jesus, of course, heals them, but then he tells them to tell nobody. Now, a lot of scholars think that that's because while Jesus had the power to heal, he also had a larger purpose. And he came not just to heal those who were around him in those times, but to preach and teach a way of life that would offer healing to the whole world for millennia to come. And I think he worried that if too many people in those days knew of his powers, he would spend all of his time working as a local healer. But what is notable about this story is that those two men who received healing from him also immediately ignored his request for secrecy and silence. And they immediately began telling the story of their healing to everyone who would listen. And it's implied that their story led another man in need of healing to be brought to Jesus. The two men telling their story helped another heal. Now, to me, that's one of the biggest lessons we can learn when we look at this story of healing through the lens of all of us today who are in need of mental healing. Perhaps the stories just need to be shared. No matter what anyone tells us, maybe in the telling of those stories, we continue to heal. And maybe in sharing those stories with others, we help in their healing stories as well. One of my UCC colleagues in ministry, the Reverend Sarah Lund, has done so much important work in teaching churches how to become safe places for us to tell our stories of mental illness. Her first book, Blessed Are the Crazy, I love that title, was a big step forward in this work, and I highly recommend it to everyone. I want to share a quick video now with you about it.
Our family struggles with mental illness. For years, we have covered it up, and we're not alone. It's time to start telling the truth. It's time to stop being ashamed. It's time to break the silence. We've kept it hush-hush for too long. It's time for the church to become a place of welcome, a place of safety, a place of hope, a place of healing, because this is the good news. God's love is with us, even when there is, as my family puts it, crazy in the blood.
Friends, I've seen the power of telling stories firsthand. I've seen storytelling that feels like a release. When we carry a story of pain, shame, or deep sin that has been eating us from the inside, giving voice to that story takes away some of its power over us. I've seen storytelling that feels like connection. When we hold our stories to ourselves, we often think that we're alone. Sharing our stories shows us that that is never the case. And I've seen storytelling that feels like a gift. Sometimes people feel called to use their story as a teaching tool for others to find healing as well. It becomes a clue for someone else's journey to healing. Maybe that is what the blind men felt as they shared their story widely thousands of years ago. So if you are feeling like you're struggling with depression, isolation, or mental illness right now, I pray that you find safe people and safe places to begin healing. Call your doctor. Find a good therapist or psychiatrist. If you know someone you love is in danger of suicide, or if you yourself are having suicidal thoughts, I ask that you please call the National Suicide Helpline, which I'm putting the number right here on the screen. And also, if you're not in immediate danger, but you just need help, or if you're not sure where to begin, one place to start is by signing up for a little one-on-one time with me. Everyone is welcome to do that, whether you are local to Walpole or whether you live on the other side of the country. We now have the technology that we can connect very easily together, and I would love to offer you some pastoral care. I am always here to listen to your stories and then to help create sacred space around them. Friends, you are beloved. No matter what state your mental health is in, and you aren't alone. Let's start healing together. Let's start telling the stories that need to be told. Let's start sharing truth.